Hi, today we're going to be talking about one of the most difficult things I can think of, recording the saxophone. Recording the saxophone is particularly challenging because the sound emanates from literally every piece of the saxophone. There are tone holes all up and down the instrument, from the very bottom all the way up to the top. This is why recording the saxophone is so particularly challenging, because you can't just stick a mic in the bell and hope for the best. You really need to take some time and understand where the best sound is going to come from. For most of us, we're going to be playing saxophones with the bell keys on the right side and a bell forward saxophone, unlike the straight soprano. This means that almost all of the sound from the instrument is going to be coming out of the right side keys and from the bell. Knowing this, there's a couple of places we should focus on to get the best sound, one of which is the honk that comes out of the bell. Unmistakably, the roar and the big brassy sound of the saxophone is coming from the bell, but a lot of the tone and other things are coming from the keys. So if you could put a mic in only one place, it would make sense to grab not only the bell, but also the sound coming out of the keys. So when we perform and record, it's important to put the microphone pointing at the middle finger of our left hand, so we get all of the great sound coming out of the tone holes in the upper stack, as well as off-axis sound from the bell to capture some of that roar and growl. When playing, we also want to be about 12 inches or so away from the microphone. I have a rule of thumb that from normal playing position, if I kick my instrument out, I should be able to just barely touch the microphone. If we get too close to the mic, we're going to isolate parts of the instrument, and we're only going to get that sound. If we get too far away, we're going to get too much of the room, and it's going to sound distant and not very clear. The only difference between recording, say, an alto or a baritone is how high the mic is off the floor. Since the bell of the baritone tends to be a little higher up, we'll have to raise the mic a little bit so that it shoots over the top of the bell to get to our middle finger on our left hand. For the soprano, we actually don't need a whole lot of bell sound because the soprano is pretty squawky to begin with. So we actually just point it at the middle of the instrument. The soprano can be a little bit more difficult and a little less forgiving if your room has too much echo because you're relying much more on the room sound than you are for alto or tenor. Lastly, we can always discuss the equipment. You can spend thousands of dollars on microphones, preamps, A to D converters, but in the end, really the most important thing is where you've placed the mic and if it's going to get good sound. I personally like these AKG 414 XLS's for one very important reason, and that is they have a very flat response curve. Now, I know most people will tell you reading response curves doesn't matter because it's really how the mic sounds in the end, but since the saxophone has such a large range of frequencies, if there's a hyped note or set of notes in the frequency response of the microphone, it tends to exaggerate that in the saxophone sound. So your middle register might sound great, but your low notes will sound honky. Or your high notes might sound thin, but your low notes sound boomy. So it's important to have a microphone that really doesn't color the sound very much. That's our job. Lastly, for those of you who record in your home studio like I do, a little bit of acoustic treatment is not a bad idea. Having some foam or some way to disperse the sound will really cut down on the harsh sounds you record in your saxophone. I can't tell you how many recordings I've ruined just by simply being in the wrong room. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, click like and subscribe to my channel for more information on the saxophone, jazz, and everything else. Thanks so much for watching.